This is a recording showing how I set up sheets for permitting. This is for an erosion control permit or SWPP. I do the post-construction SWPPs the same pretty much in North Carolina. The post-construction and the pre-construction SWPPs are separate in North Carolina. And the process is much simpler than, say, South Carolina and Tennessee. So just going to go over the way to set the sheets up in this video, and just let you know that this is not my company that I'm showing here. It's a company that I help out. So here we go. This set of plans does not have the custom drawing properties in it just because I'm working with somebody else. But typically on the cover you'll have your lat and your long, your pins, the name, and then contact info. That's a construction sequence. You can look at the checklist and all this stuff's on there. So I'm not going to tell you what to put on it, but just how I've done it. I always bring the vicinity maps into Paperspace. People try to set up a viewport. No, just bring it into Paperspace, scale it, and then forget about it. This is my cover sheet view. So let me double click into it. As you'll notice, a lot of stuff is missing. But if you double click into that window and then type LA, that brings up the layer manager. So let's make that full screen. And if you'll notice, here's all of your layers and colors, line types, whether it's on or frozen, all that stuff. This is your model space settings. This is what you would set up in Sofdesk 8. This is all you had. But since then, they've added additional columns, and you run into things like this, VP freeze. So the way this works is, let's say I don't want to show, this is a setback line on my cover sheet. That's really detail I don't need to show. I use the layer tool. If you go right click, show toolbar, iCAD, and this layer tools is the one you want. This is the toolbar. That's the button you want, layer freeze. It's pick freeze. So first make sure you're in the viewport and then pick the freeze button and then pick the lines you want to freeze, and it turns it off on that viewport. If we go to model space and look, it's still there. And then if we look at other sheets, I think it's still, yeah, it's still there. So that's the way you set up sheets without having to go through and set your layers up to print or to save off to different files. You set up each sheet as a tab. And these sheets are 24 by 36. The units in Paperspace are inches typically, whereas the units in model space are feet. You'll want to set your Paperspace up 1:1. So let me type plot to show some of the settings there. And I plot extensile a lot just because an old plotter I had required that. But you basically set up your print area, what you want to print. Layout's tricky, so you may just want to do a window around your title block at first, and use this center on page. That really makes that look better. I've got a pin table set up here, so let's look at the pin table. And the way I do my design is everything's color, layer color. So most of my line work is color by layer, and most of my layers have a model space color and a paper space color, where that color can vary from sheet to sheet. But just to show this, the way I've got it set up is I have every color set up to print as black. I've overridden that up until some of these other colors. What I recommend is setting up your colors 1 through 9 and your colors 250 through 255. That's the easiest way. So colors 1 through 9 are all black. They're also full. They're not screened. They're solid lines, every one of them. So there's no screening, which you'd have to use to make plans look half decent in this type of work. So then when you go down to 251, I've got it set to use object color, which has a screening of 68. And then as the color gets harder to see, I reduce the screening. And my 255 is 2, so only 2% of solid is printed on that color. And you could set this up here to black, and it wouldn't make any difference. I believe this is overriding. You can also set up your pen widths. So my color red is, I forget what that is, 5 thousandths, 7 thousandths, 98 thousandths. And it gets thicker as you go down the list. And this, again, this is somebody else's colors. They have their white color super heavy, which I don't do. And I also don't use blue much because I've burned the blue out of my eyes. I can't see blue anymore. So that's how you would set up the colors. So then whenever, if you want to set up a sheet, and let's say you want everything, let's just say you want everything on this sheet to not be solid. You can select your layers, select all, then go to VP color and pick one of the colors, set it to 253. And note you can change the line type also. So now everything in this viewport that's set up color by layer changed to that gray override. But if I go back to model space, there's no change to the model space colors. So then if I go to another sheet, it's like erosion control, it's not been affected either. Last thing I want to show you is how to set sheets up correctly. So the first thing you want to do is type LT scale and make sure it's set to 1. If you have your LT scale set to 1 and you come here to settings, drawing setup, even if you don't make any, well, I got it overridden to 1. Let me change that. Yeah. So even if you just open this up and change the projection or something and then close it, it's going to change your LT scale. And for model space, that's fine, but for paper space, you can't do it that way. You want to set your LT scale to 1. So the next thing you want to check, we'll do it on this sheet here, is go to a tab and type PS LT scale, and that should be on. And please note, if I turn PSLT scale off on a tab and I go to a different tab, I'm just going to hit the up arrow to run the same command. So it's off on, it's on this sheet, it's off on that sheet. And what it does is it controls the spacing between the way your special lines show up. So it changes the spacing. Let me do a regen. Yeah, and let me change the LT scale, I think. Yeah, so let's type LT scale A lot of times it ends up being 25. And note how it changed on the view. And the only reason, so this is one setup. So note, in this setup, I've got the PSLT scale set to 25. And the line work looks pretty good. But if you type PSLT scale, on that sheet it's turned off. That's one way to set up sheets, is to leave your PSLT scale turned off, set your LT scale to a value that looks good, assuming all your sheets are the same scale, and go with that. But I recommend doing it this other way instead. So let me turn the PSLT scale back on that sheet, do a regen. A lot of times you have to regen to see the changes, and note that really blows it up. So let's go LT scale, set it back to 1. And so we've got LT scale set to 1, PSLT scale turned on each sheet. And then where you set your scale up is in the actual viewports. So I'm going to create a viewport with the command M view. And when you create that viewport, it will do a zoom extents. And you just zoom in on the area that you want to show up. Note how the lines are kind of wonky. So that's close. So you get it zoomed in sort of in the middle. And now you want to type the command scale list edit. And this is where you set up the different scales for your sheets. So let's add add 1 inch equals, let's see what I got. I'll do 1 inch equals 200. And then I just tell it 1 unit is 200 units. Click OK. Now I select the viewport. And I've got my properties window docked. If you don't type properties, open it up. And then if you come down, you've got your annotation scale and your standard scale. So what I'd recommend is go to annotation scale first, set it to the 200 that we just created. And then the standard scale should match the annotation scale. And this will make your line work look correct, no matter what scale you set. It will do the scaling to where your hidden lines always look hidden. They always look kind of right when you set things up this way. The only other thing is if you work in model space a lot, you'll want to come down here to this annotation scale list and double click on it. Usually it's 1-to-1. So let's just yep. So if we've got the LT scale set to 1 and we've got our model space scale view set to 1-to-1, it's not going to look good. But if you determine that most of your sheets are going to be 1 inch equals 50, come down here and just set it to that. And that way when you're working in model space, it's going to look the same as when you're working in, if you double click into a viewport and working here. One other thing is that once you set your sheet up, your view, by zooming in and out and then setting the scale on the viewport, go here to display locked and say yes. I think there's a command. No, there is a command that'll lock every viewport, but I don't remember it at the moment. Otherwise, this is what'll happen. I'm going to unlock this viewport. This is the most common mistake people make. So this viewport's not locked, and I come in here and I want to make a change. So let's see, let me zoom in kind of close, and then I come in here and okay, I want to work on that right there. Oh, I don't think it's locked, or I'm not in it yet. So I'm double clicked into the model space now. Um, and just FYI, to go into model space on the paper space view, you double click in. And then to get out, you move your cursor outside of that and double click. If you get into a model space and you can't get out, type PSLT scale. I mean, not PSLT scale, P space. And that'll take you out. So let's say this viewport's unlocked and I come in here and I want to edit something, so I zoom in real close and I make the changes. And usually this is the way it works. It's not that obvious. Is you'll be zoomed in like this, you'll double click in, you'll zoom in a little closer, you'll make the change, then you'll type P space to go back out of paper, out of model space, do a zoom extents to show the sheet, and sheet's messed up. So if I click on the viewport, let's change that back to 1 in 60. And of course it's got panned. Another thing you can do is ZP for zoom previous. And a lot of times that will get you back. You just keep hitting ZP till it stops for that viewport, and that's usually where it was left. So if everything's set up, your annotation, standard scale, lock it. And usually what I'll do when I'm setting up one of these is I'll set up each of my sheets. Even if I just have the survey in there, I'll set up each sheet. And on each sheet, again, you can turn layers on and off. Just on that sheet, you can change their color and their line type and their transparency. But I only recommend just controlling what layers show and the color of the layer. And then that all ties into your plotter settings. So to manage this, just learn your colors. You don't have to worry about exactly what everything is. Just know that this yellow color is going to be a heavier line than this red, and anything that's sort of gray is going to print screened. So let me do a print preview just to show you what this looks like. So if what happened here is the CTB file is wrong. I shouldn't be seeing colors, so let's get close. Yeah. So up here is your different CTB files. That's what we set up earlier. I'm using, whenever I work for a company, I use their CTB file in their CAD standard. It's a good way to get work. I try to do things exactly the way the companies I help do, so they don't have to spend all their time fixing things to their standard. So this is the sheet. Survey text is grayed back. The road is actually a solid hatch that's got a transparency put on it. I'm gonna zoom in a little. So this is a line type, custom line type that I set up. I'm pretty sure it's in the recording. And I do have a little bit of color in here. This is drainage areas. And this was just something that was requested. So that's my sheet. Another thing that you can do, and it's a little bit hit or miss, but it works most of the time, is let's say I come in here and I've got my printer set up, I've got my paper size, I've got everything looking, I do a preview, nothing's cut off, everything looks pretty good. So if I like these settings, click the add button. I'm just going to call it saved settings. And then it takes you into this other one where you can make changes, but it pretty much copies the same format over. And now we have a named page set up. So I'm not going to print this. I'm just going to say apply to layout and then cancel. So now if I go to this sheet, and it's set up on the EC, but let's set it up on the save settings. So now I'm matching. So that's usually what I'll do is I'll create all my tabs for my sheets, and then I'll go through and get my layers set up, and then I'll set up the plot settings for the first sheet, and go to add, save those settings, and then I'll just go sheet by sheet and make that change. Hit apply layout and cancel. Let me try one thing here. I haven't checked this in a while. So if I change this to save settings and I don't hit apply layout, I just hit cancel. Let me see what it does. Yeah, don't change it. So you got to hit apply to layout. Otherwise you hit OK and it'll print it, but I always hit apply to layout and then cancel. So here's my other sheet. So with this set cover, I show the survey plat. This isn't a grading and drainage sheet. I wouldn't normally put this so early in the plan set. I usually do my clearing and grubbing here. But this was something requested. And it just shows the storm pipes and swells. It doesn't normally look this grayed out because that was what I just changed a while ago. And if you notice, when we did change all the colors, some of this stuff didn't change. And this is a proxy entity that I could not do anything with. Actually, I did get it converted to a polyline, but as you'll notice, its color is set to yellow and not by layer. So if I change this to by layer, it switches like the other layers have switched. I profile my roads. It's usually a requirement. Road net. Profile at the top, plan at the bottom. Viewport down here, viewport up there. I draw the whole profile and then I use the edge of the paper space to cut it. And this being in Watauga County, things like match lines and so forth, you really have to pick and choose what you use to get it done quick enough. This road's pretty much already built. So, but normally I would have a match line right here, matching the profile from the previous sheet. But this one was a bit of a hurry. As far as details go, if you're in North Carolina doing erosion control, if you can't find these details, I'll send you a link. We didn't used to have these. These are just came out not too long ago. And they're basically, when you use this standard detail, it connects the call out on your plans to the state manual. So with North Carolina, this construction entrance was approved with the EPA to be used in North Carolina. So by using the exact detail, the latest detail that the state has, this detail connects to the state erosion control manual, which is essentially our SWPP. The SWPP in North Carolina is created by the state, and then when we submit plans, it's not really the SWPP, it's an amendment to an existing SWPP. But I'm not going to get into too much of that, but It's important to know that in North Carolina, you can use the state's resources to document things like where you got your uh, detail information from. In other states, like South Carolina, you have to provide the spec backup in your SWPP manual. Just FYI, a SWPP manual in South Carolina will have about 35 categories, and a SWPP manual in North Carolina will have about 6 or 7. Um, it's just when North Carolina set up their permitting process, instead of requiring every project to recreate the wheel of a standalone SWPP, we borrow from the state's approved SWPP. Um, that's for erosion control. Um, the erosion control manuals are SWPP. For storm, the BMP manuals, the SWPP. So I've got skimmer ponds in here because it's a protected watershed, silt fence outlet, or no porous baffle details. And these are the uh, check dam models. These are my storm profiles, riprap, and then we've got matted ditches. I use North American Green matting and North American Green software to design the matting. 9 times out of 10, SC250 will take care of everything, pre and post stability. Um, these 2 sheets here, again, this is part of the state permit that we share with our SWPP, this NCG01. And instead of us coming up with our own custom planning and seeding schedules, this sheet's, you can get this from the state. And same thing on this sheet. This is the self-inspection form, and I downloaded this from the state. And then the last sheet typically is sort of a catch-all calculation, just something just in case these plans get separated from the calculation booklet that goes with it. Um, we've got some reference into how we came up with our drainage areas and some summaries of our swell and our pipe network. Um, I did the pipe network with Carlson's pipe network, and I did the swell chart by calculating the Q for each swell, but then going in North American Green website and having to do the stability analysis. Although we have in hydrology, we have a channel design. I think the grass one is the one that it follows. It basically follows the same design method, but in my experience with making submissions, if you send something in that looks different than what everybody else is sending in, it'll take longer to get it reviewed. And sort of the magic bullet on getting an approved swell on, say, a post-construction low density site is to do the calculations of the swell with the North American Green software. Otherwise, they'll just beat you to death. So that's the plan set. That's kind of what most people have set up. The good thing about it is, well, one thing to note about it is when you go from tab to tab, it may go slower than this. But once it goes to a tab, it loads that information in the RAM and you can switch pretty quick. Just to show you a trick that I have set up, if you wanted down the road, I can do an automatic sheet index. On each of my sheets, I have this small block that has the sheet number and the sheet name as that attribute. So if I double click on this, I could change the sheet name and the title. I've got this index number in here just so things come out in the correct order. By having this on each sheet, I can go to inquiry, block data report, and when it says what to select, say all, and then enter. And if you have a block that has attributes, those attributes will show up right here. The ones I want are index number, page, and sheet name. So then I click OK, and then table entity, and then OK, exit, and it asks me for a location for the table, so I'll pick here. And then the trick is to go to sort column, index number, and as long as you've got your index numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it will sort it for you. Click OK, and then there's my sheets. There's my T1s, title sheet, S1, black by others. It just checks each sheet, gives me the name and the page number, and that's kind of advanced. So, but this throwing stuff out there, it's good to know what other people are doing, so you know what to learn. I think that's what you need to get to the next step. So the erosion control webinar I recorded probably was a little, didn't cover this as well, so hopefully this helps. And if you have any other questions, let me know. I am a little backed up right now. We had a hurricane come through, so not doing training at the moment. So just trying to help people get unstuck. So hopefully this helps. Thanks.